Everybody, welcome back to Shifty's 49ers Talk. In today's video, guys, we're going to go over my Week 5 NFL Power Rankings. As usual, we're going to start off with my bottom 3 teams, and then we'll move into my top 10. There is quite a bit of movement in this week's Power Rankings after another crazy weekend in the NFL. Let's get right into it, but first, let's run the intro. Let's just jump right into the bottom 3 teams, and this week we have 2 newcomers in the bottom 3. So at 30th overall, third from the bottom, we have the New England Patriots. The Patriots on Sunday lost to the San Francisco 49ers 30-13. Now, when I look at the Patriots team, their offense is really bad. You know, Ramondre Stevenson has moments where he can run the football, but overall their offensive line is a mess. They don't have nearly enough weapons. Jacoby Brissett is just a stopgap option. I do think it's wise to be sitting Drake May because behind that offensive line, I think his confidence would just get crushed. However, defensively, I think the Patriots, they have some good players. Christian Gonzalez, Jabril Peppers had a really nice play too, intercepting Brock Purdy, and there's definitely potential there from a coaching aspect. They just need talent, and I think it's going to take at least a year or two before they are seriously competitive again. I do like Gerard Mayo, though, as a coach. I think he's doing a good job with what he has to work with. And at number 31 in my power rankings, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they are unchanged from last week, second from the bottom. They lost a pretty close game to the Houston Texans 24-20. Definitely looked a lot better than they did the week before against the Buffalo Bills. However, divisional games are always pretty close. Trevor Lawrence, again, is still missing guys who were wide open down the field, missed Christian Kirk really badly on what would have been just a big-time throw, and the Jaguars just look like a mess. They are the only team who are winless so far. They're 0-4, and just things are not looking good down there in Jacksonville. Doug Peterson's seat is maybe getting a little bit hot, but the big question mark, I think, for the Jaguars moving forward is Trevor Lawrence really that guy? He's gonna be for the next couple of years because of just all the crazy money that you just gave him. So there you have the Jacksonville Jaguars at 31, and the newcomer to the bottom of my power rankings are going to be the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins just had a terrible loss to the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, who last week were my bottom team in the NFL. Without Tua Tagovailoa, they are just looking completely inept offensively. And I don't know if it's a case of the offense was just so tailored around Tua's strengths that now it just can't really work with any other quarterback. But you look at some of the talent on the offense, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, the running backs, Achane, some of the guys are out hurt, but still to be putting up next to nothing offensively is just, it's just not looking good for Mike McDaniel down there in Miami. You look at it too, where it's like, do we know when Tua's going to be back? Like, it might be another 2 or 3 weeks. It might be the rest of the season. Just hard to say. I think the Miami Dolphins are in a really tough spot. I do want to say, though, I think their defense is playing pretty strong. They're playing pretty well. All things considered, their offense is not helping them out at all. But right now, to me, the Miami Dolphins are playing the worst football in the NFL, looking at the last couple of weeks. And I don't think it's going to get a whole lot better until Tua is back. And he is really important to that Miami Dolphins team. Now, coming up next, guys, we're going to get into my top 10 teams as we enter Week 5 in the NFL. And coming in at number 10 in my power rankings this week, it's going to be the same as last week. We have the Houston Texans. They did beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 24-20. I thought they looked pretty solid, all things considered. Yep, division games are always going to be really close, especially they play each other twice a year. Very familiar with one another. Houston Texans really missing the likes of Joe Mixon, more so, and Dameon Pierce to a certain degree. The ground game just hasn't been the same without them, and Joe Mixon is a really good, very underrated running back, I think. The offense, though, they're still able to put up enough points. The defense able to make enough plays. I do think that this is a team that they really have to hit their stride. I want to say that Stephon Diggs did leave the game with an injury. Hopefully he'll be okay, but I think they're just going to need to find something that works, and I think the big thing would be getting Joe Mixon back healthy. When you can have a balanced offense that's going to allow CJ Stroud to throw the ball down the field and make those big plays. And then if the defense wants to step back and defend the deep pass, well, you can just kill them underneath with the run game. So, and defensively, they are able to make some plays, and they're always going to be dangerous when you have Danielle Hunter, and then you have Will Anderson. I forgot the name for a second. But you have Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, who are going to be able to get after the quarterback. They have some good players in the secondary to capitalize on that. So I like the Houston Texans. They're still a very good team. I just think that they haven't really found their groove yet this season. That loss to Minnesota, I think, really threw them off. Now coming in at number 9 in my power rankings, we have the Green Bay Packers. They did lose last week to the Minnesota Vikings at home, but a very, very close game. Initially, and in the first half, this was going to be a blowout, a complete rout, if you will. However, in the fourth quarter, the Packers offense came to life. Jordan Love looked really, really good. Took him a while to get into the game, but when he did, he hit his stride. He looked really good. They were able to put up points in chunks. I think this defense, they were able to settle down. When you look at the second half, they played a lot better. Sometimes you just maybe have to give credit to the great coaching of the Minnesota Vikings. But look, at the end of the day, they only lost by a few points to the Vikings, who are a very good team. Jordan Love coming back from injury. I think, give him another week or two. He's really going to get into a good rhythm. And I think this offense is going to be able to put up some points. Really well coached by Matt LaFleur. Green Bay Packers at number 9. At number 8, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. They did just lose on the road to the Indianapolis Colts. A little bit similar to the Green Bay Packers, where it took the Steelers a while to get into this game, really until the second half. They did end up making it really, really close towards the end. I think this was just one of those weird games. The defense definitely wasn't playing up to their usual standards. Whether it was Anthony Richardson or that he left and got hurt, Joe Flacco came in. They were able to move the ball way too easy against a Steelers defense that has been really, really stingy through the first few weeks of the season. I do think they will bounce back big time defensively, and moving forward, they will be a lot better than what they showed on Sunday. Offensively, Justin Fields is growing into his rhythm, growing into his position as the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. George Pickens had a breakout game. Pat Freiermuth was looking pretty good. So I think the more time Fields has with Arthur Smith as his offensive coordinator, they will continue to get better. At number 7 in my power rankings, we have the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks did lose on Monday Night Football to the Detroit Lions. Now, the Lions, they were all over the place with penalties and everything. It was a wild, wacky game with a lot of points. However, Seattle's offense is looking a lot better than I expected this season. I knew that they were maybe going to take another step with another year of Geno Smith with his weapons, DK Metcalf, JSN, Tyler Lockett. Kenneth Walker had maybe the play of the season, and it wasn't even like a massive chunk game, but that play where he got tackled but wasn't actually down by contact and then flipped over to get the first down was just absolutely ridiculous. What a play by Kenneth Walker. He's a really good running back. And you have a defense, well, they did give up 42 points to the Detroit Lions, which is not good, but I think they'll bounce back. And as the weeks can continue to go on, I think Mike McDonald there being the head coach, they will improve. I do also anticipate the Seahawks to maybe be in the market come towards the trade deadline. I think they could maybe go for an edge player, maybe someone on the defensive line to help boost the defense there in Seattle for Mike McDonald. So maybe there's someone, I don't know, we'll have to dig into that. But I do think the Seahawks could be a team that will look to upgrade that defense, because they could be ready to pounce this season for a playoff run. Geno Smith also leading the NFL in passing yards, believe it or not. Now coming in at number 6 in my power rankings, we have the Buffalo Bills, who were number 1 last week. They go on the road and they lose badly to the Baltimore Ravens. The first play offensively for the Ravens, Derrick Henry takes it 87 yards, bam, touchdown, and the Bills were never really able to recover from there. Baltimore looked absolutely dominant, as they usually do at home, although the Ravens struggled the first couple of weeks in the season. Now, though, the Ravens are looking like an absolute juggernaut out there, destroying the Buffalo Bills, who I think many people would have had as a top 3 team heading into the week. So great job by the Ravens, but just the Buffalo Bills, I think this is one of those games where, and every team has them, where they just underperform, things aren't clicking, the ball just isn't bouncing your way. I do think that they will be fine moving forward. They do have to figure things out a little bit defensively, but I do like the offense to continue getting better as Josh Allen gets more accustomed to his new weapons in Buffalo. Now coming up next, guys, I'm going to give you my top 5 teams in the NFL as we head into week 5 of the NFL season. And at number 5, we have the Baltimore Ravens at 2-2, and they are number 5 in my power rankings. Well, we were just talking about them a little bit in the previous segment where the Baltimore Ravens absolutely destroyed the Buffalo Bills, and the offense was doing it everywhere. Lamar Jackson had a very solid, just efficient game. Derrick Henry exploded onto the scene, and that's what you're going to expect from the Baltimore Ravens when you add a talent like Derrick Henry. Still has that gas. He's still as big as ever, as tough to bring down as ever, but you see him outrunning defensive backs. Just wild to see. Derrick Henry is still doing it at his age, getting a little bit up there, and just so impressive. I think if the Ravens can really establish their run game, it just makes them so dangerous, and I don't want to say impossible, but really difficult to slow down. When I look at the Ravens kind of moving forward, I could see them being in the market. I think maybe for a wide receiver. Zay Flowers is okay. You have some weapons, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely at tight end, but I think they may look to bring in a wide receiver through a trade in the next few weeks to just really elevate that offense maybe to another level. The defense played really well against Buffalo, and I think they'll continue to do so. They have a new defensive coordinator this year, so it's going to take time, but I really liked the Baltimore Ravens performance here. Was just amazing. And here's the thing, that was a really big game for them, because if they lose that game against a really good opponent in Buffalo, they move to 1-3 on the season, and not that their year would be over at 1-3, but it would be looking, a lot more bleak than what they would have expected at this point. Ravens at number 5. And at number 4 in my power rankings, another team who were not in my top 10 last week, who've now vaulted up into the top 5, and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They won big time over the Philadelphia Eagles. Final score 33-16. At one point, I think it was like 24-0. The Buccaneers had 255 offensive yards. The Eagles had 0. Now, let's be a little bit fair. The Eagles were playing without Devontae Smith and without A.J. Brown, but still, 255 yards to nothing, that's just insane. Philadelphia did make a little bit of a comeback later on, but they never really got close to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield is playing great football. He's getting all of his guys involved. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are just doing their thing. Good to see Rachaad White have a big game as well. And the defense looked really good. Being able to get after Jalen Hurts, which is not always the easiest thing to do with a mobile quarterback. And I think Tampa Bay's performance was just dominant against a good Philadelphia Eagles team. Now, not the best version of their team because they're missing their top 2 wideouts, but overall, I just came away super impressed with the Buccaneers, and I think Baker Mayfield playing at that level is just, for the Buccaneers, you just have to be absolutely thrilled. The big question, though, with Baker is, yes, he can have games like this, but can he keep it consistently, especially against the top-tier teams? That remains to be seen. At number 3 in my rankings, we have the Detroit Lions. The Lions on Monday Night Football just beat down on the Seattle Seahawks. The game was, I think, a little bit closer than what the score might suggest, but here's a crazy stat. Jared Goff did not have an incompletion. It was like 19 of 19, something crazy like that. He also caught a touchdown on like a Motor City special, if you will. The offense was phenomenal, obviously. They didn't have an incompletion. Also, the running game was really good. Jahmyr Gibbs went off in the passing game and the rushing game. Montgomery looked good. Jameson Williams had a long touchdown reception, highlighting his speed. Amon-Ra St. Brown underneath. Then you look at Sam Laporta and so many weapons offensively, and it's taken until week 4, but Detroit finally hit their stride offensively. Now, defensively, they're going to have some things to improve upon. You know, Geno Smith had, 350 passing yards, but I do like the Detroit Lions. I think they're really, really playing well. Seattle was 3-0, playing with a ton of confidence heading into that game. Now, you could argue Seattle's level of competition hasn't been the best so far, but I do think that Detroit, that was just a really impressive win on the national scene. Everybody watching Monday Night Football, just wild to see. And everyone was watching that. Nobody was watching Miami and Tennessee. That game was awful. But what a huge, impressive win for the Detroit Lions and Dan Campbell. At number 2 in my rankings, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs did come away with a win against the LA Chargers, 17-10, a pretty pedestrian game from Patrick Mahomes. Here's the big news out of that game, though. Wide receiver Rashee Rice is feared to have a torn ACL, actually caused by Patrick Mahomes after an interception trying to make a tackle, hits Rashee Rice in the knee, and now he might be out for the year. They're also without Hollywood Brown, so this is going to put a lot of pressure on guys like Xavier Worthy, the rookie out of Texas. You of course have Travis Kelce, but then factor in too that as Isaiah Pacheco is out, and he's going to be out for at least another few weeks. So can Kansas City weather the storm for the next few weeks, the next few games? That remains to be seen. Here's the positive for them though. They are 4-0 and they play in a not so great division. They're 2 games ahead already, so even if they do slip up a little bit in terms of their division, they're going to be totally fine, and these guys will, some of them will come back healthy. Kansas City, I think, like Baltimore, will be in the market for a wide receiver in terms of a trade in the next few weeks. Don't be surprised if that happens. And my team at number 1, we have the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings, they go into Green Bay, a division game, on the road, and they beat Green Bay. It was a pretty close game and pretty close score at the end of it, but through 3 quarters, they dominated them. Maybe they got a little bit complacent as the game went on. Sam Darnold then had the interception, thrown into the end zone, which wasn't great, but for 3 quarters, they dominated. It was 28-0, looking like a complete blowout. Now look, you do have to, of course, factor in football. There's 4 quarters in the game, and the 4th quarter was not kind to Minnesota, but they still came away and pulled out the win. And I think that they were just so dominant, passing the football, running the ball with Aaron Jones looking good going back to Green Bay. The defense was able to make big plays, 3 interceptions. Jordan Love did kind of then get into a groove in the 4th quarter, but overall, super impressive. You look at the level of competition that Minnesota played. Giants week 1, that's something, but you beat San Francisco, you beat Houston, you beat Green Bay, and that's just really impressive to me. And I think moving forward, Minnesota is probably the best coached team as of right now in the NFL, and they're also playing the best football consistently in the NFL. They have a game now in London against a desperate New York Jets team for a win, so we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But right now, I think Minnesota are the best team in the NFL, and I would not want to be a team like the 49ers. If we had to go into Minnesota in the playoffs, that would be a really tough place to play. But there you have it, guys. Those are my power rankings as we head into week 5 in the NFL season. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, whether you agree with me, whether you disagree with me, where I went right, where I went wrong. Feel free to leave your own power rankings as well. Of course, guys, do the usual, like, subscribe. Feel free to share the videos on social media. That really helps grow the channel, and we are growing this channel week in and week out, which is awesome to see, and thank you guys so much for that. But I'm gonna head on out of here, but before I go, I'm gonna say 2 things. The butt counts, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.